Hello, everyone. Welcome to chapter 206 of The Last Thoughts of a Busy Mind. This one is titled Iran is Depressed. We are still in season 14, and our theme is misunderstanding Iran. Now, I'm sorry, I know how this sounds. Iran is depressed. You're probably thinking, oh, is this an thinly veiled thing that, like instead of saying, I am depressed, you're putting it to Iran. And maybe, I don't know. I haven't thought about it that long. The reason I named it this is, we'll get to it, is because I believe it is a problem. Not that Iranians being depressed is like unique or anything, but it's how it is discussed that is the problem. But before we get there, my drink today is some Coke Zero. Let's have a sip. It's not very cold. It's actually not cold at all. It's very much room temperature. Amazing. Amazing. Okay then. Where to start? You know what I mean? Now, you might have noticed I didn't name this episode Iran is Depressing because that is a whole other issue. A lot of things about Iran are just depressing. Our system of government is depressing. Our lack of good management is depressing. The fact that we have mismanaged our resources so far, that our president has issued a warning that unless it rains, we have to evacuate the capital city. That is depressing. There are things about Iran that is very much depressing, but that's not the issue that I want to talk about. It's about Iranian people and depression as a whole and how it is discussed when it comes to countries like Iran, where things are, basically speaking, we don't have a lot of things in order. So our depression is often seen as a secondary thing, as something that is like, how dare you have depression, when there are bigger problems. And that's what I want to mostly talk about. Now, a mental health issue, depression as a whole, is a universal problem. It's not unique to Iran, it's not unique to Iranians, but there's this ugly thing when it's discussed within people of Middle Earth. Oh my God, no, Middle East. Middle East. I haven't slept for like 14 hours or so. I'm kind of tired. I'm recording this on Friday. I'm trying to be coherent, but people of Middle East. Oftentimes, the concern for the well-being of people of Middle East oftentimes stops at physical, including Iranians. I've seen people who talk about Iranians online, including Iranian diaspora. Their problems oftentimes just stop at physical. At best, if they have a secondary problem, it stops at economical. If people in Middle East aren't being bombed or have a successful business, well, fuck, what else do they have to complain about? Which is a thing that I genuinely hate it. Now, I know the hierarchy of needs. You need shelter before you even think about self-actualization. And yes, it's hard to think about depression when you're actively being bombed, but when they stop bombing you, it's like, okay, we've done our part, but no, you have created a lot of trauma, you have created a lot of emotional responses, you have created depression at the very least, and that needs addressing as well. That is something that you need to address, that is something you need to know. I've seen people who talk about, in particular, the areas of Middle East who are actively being bombed, Palestine and Yemen, or places like that, or Afghanistan, where it's having a lot of issues. When people are talking about them, do they try to frame their stories as human focused, bringing up a couple of examples and talking about that, they're usually mostly talking about the physical cost, of they've lost their home, they've lost their family members. And it feels like as soon as the bombs stop dropping, it's no longer our issue, We don't give a fuck anymore. The bomb stopped. The rest is up to you. And that is a problem because a lot of people, especially people from Middle East, carry a lot of things with them into their daily lives. And we don't know how to deal with the fact that a lot of Iranians have depressive episodes without even knowing they have depressive episodes. Because we're told that's not a thing we can have. We have to work for the shelter and our economic benefit. And so how dare we talk about depression? That's not something we have. That's something the real first world people have. And that is usually when it's something talked about, especially Iranian diaspora, when they're talking to the Iranian counterparts, to the Iranian families. Most of the things they talk about are, you should get your economics in order, and if you feel depressed after that, it's no problem. You don't have the luxury to be depressed because you should be working on the grind set. And when it comes from people outside of Iran, non-Iranians, when they're talking about it, it doesn't even manage to cross their minds. And if it does, it's mostly in the vein of, your only problem is the government. Again, this is where a lot of propaganda has been done. Again, I bring it back to the royalists and monarchists, where everything is framed within the confines of the government, as if the Islamic Republic is the pinnacle of all of Iran's issue. And it is the reason for a lot of them, but it's not all of them. Depression in Iran has a long history that stems from patriarchy. And patriarchy isn't new to the IR. It was very much happening, up until IR. Mismanagement of resources was still happening. A lot of the things that make you feel depressed were still happening. So all I'm saying is, framing the Iranian depression as something to do with the government feels like a shrug. It's like, the government, get rid of the government, depression goes away. Now, getting rid of the government certainly helps with a lot of things. Genuinely, believe me, if there is no Islamic Republic, a lot of things will be better. A lot of things. Probably a lot of the issues for depression will be better. But that is not how people talk about it. Because to them, it's not the mental health that they're concerned with, it's the physical health. And I get that. Physical health is a tangible thing. Mental health is not that tangible. But at the same time, it makes you feel kind of worthless, There is this problem, and I don't know if people outside of Middle East feel it as well, but it's very prominent in the Middle East. I've talked with, other Iranians and people from everywhere in the Middle East, Syrians, Iraqis, Afghans, not people from UAE or places like that they don't really like us to talk to us, but I talk to Palestinians online and in Middle Eastern communities. And there is this thing where it's like, if your pain isn't showing on your body, it doesn't count. Not to you. To you, of course, it counts. Perhaps to your close family, it counts. To your friends, it counts. But to the larger society, To the international eye, it doesn't fucking count. Part of being a Middle Eastern is showing your pain, showing your suffering on your skin. It's showing the bullet holes, it's showing the scars, it's showing the welts. Because if you don't have them, because if you can't show them something physical, they don't give a shit. Your life, your mental health, your depression, that don't matter. As long as there aren't any bombs dropping on you. When Israel-Gaza ceasefire sort of happened, and I saw a lot of reactions online from many Westerners, and a lot of them were like, yeah, it's a good thing. It is a good thing. The ceasefire is a good thing if Israel don't keep bombing people, which they will do. They will keep killing because, the Western powers love their mad dog in the region. And sorry. When that happened, a lot of people were like, okay, our job is done. No longer Palestinians need support. We stop the bombs. But those bombs, every single bomb that falls, every single house, every single displacement has created with it a ton of baggage. A lot of people in Gaza were children. Do you think they're gonna grow up and, be well adjusted after living through that? But to the international community, the responsibility to the people of the region were, as far as physical went, If the city wasn't getting destroyed, the rest is... doesn't matter, does it? Sorry, I know. Part of me, even right now, is like, okay, why are you complaining? This is such first world problems. Who the fuck is it? Yes, being bombed is worse, but you're not being bombed, so count your blessings. Who the fuck cares about your depression? And that's true. Who the fuck cares about our depression? It's not a physical thing we can show. So to the international community, we are not suffering because we're not being bombed. To the Iranian diaspora, we are not suffering. If, unless the suffering is, I don't know, we don't have the economic opportunities that people outside of Iran have, and that is all that they fucking care about. The Iranian diaspora is the best advocate for capitalism because that's all they've learned from living outside of Iran. Sorry, the dig was unnecessary, but I am just tired. Depression matters, It's part of our needs. Anxiety, depression, the trauma of living in the Middle East matters. And yeah, the people who drop bombs are responsible for it. We are humans here, and humans, having depression and wanting to talk about it, wanting to ask for help, wanting to see that people care about that is not a first world problem. I don't mean by people, I don't mean your immediate family or close friends. I mean people halfway across the world who claim to care about your well-being, who claim to understand that their actions and their inactions toward the government's actions has made a tangible difference in our lives. But the differences aren't always physical. There are places in the Middle East who are not being actively bombed, who never probably saw fighting, but they are dealing with depression on a daily basis because of the restrictive systems that they live in, and because the governments across the world have decided that these restrictive systems have a right to exist in this place because, otherwise they don't get their oil. I'm tired that when everyone talks about Islamic republics' influence on Iran, they don't talk about the fact that they have created a nation of 90 million depressed people whose idea of depression is so warped that some of them believe that by expelling like racial minorities, they can cure their depression. It's not our fault, We're just there to make sure the bombing doesn't happen. The fact that up until that bombing, we have had so many fucking policies in charge that made sure your government could do the worst they can to you without us ever stepping in. And whenever you left us, whenever you leave Iran, you are faced with measures, and measures of Orientalism and racism, if not just due to the fucking sanctions. The fact that there are applications that make you connect to people outside of Iran, and all of them are restricted for you and you alone. For the fact that for us to be able to publish something to the wider world, try to get a community, the thing that they seem to think they love, but if you're from Iran, you are banned from doing so. All of that is not your fault. But if the bomb falls, it is, well, you just have a selective way of thinking about things. All of them work together. Just because currently, at this very second, bombs aren't falling on us, doesn't mean we're good. It's very easy to hand wave it, It's very easy to look at a region, and when you're not seeing military action or direct action, you feel like, oh, they're okay there. These people are probably okay there. Because otherwise you have to realize that all of the injustices that happen to Middle East aren't just physical. Some of them are mental. Some of the anguish is going to be mental. How do you deal with that? I don't know. All I know is Iran is depressed. Some of us are still dealing with the trauma of the bombings. The Iran-Israel war. And that was a 12-day, that was a tiny war. It is. I understand that when it comes to mental health, a lot of people have this idea that, it's you have to deal with it yourself, and that is correct. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that people outside of Iran should care about Iranians' access to mental health, even though they should, but you know what I mean. I'm not saying they have to force every Iranian to go into therapy and deal with their trauma, whether generational or personal, and their depression. No. I'm just saying a lot of those causes for those depressions are not physical, they're not tangible. The fact that you're singled out on every place is enough to give you depression. But yeah. Anyways, sorry, I tried to make this one make coherent sense. In my head, I was making coherent sense, but maybe that didn't translate well. As you probably can notice from my voice, going through some stuff, But 4 more episodes remain on this season, and then we will go to season 15. But yeah. Iran is not a depressing place by nature. It isn't supposed to be. But sorry about the sneeze. If you claim to care about the people of Middle East, even superficially, Their care shouldn't stop at bombs. Bombs are the least of them. See you all next week.